is a book review of Masters of Comic Book Art. It's a fairly thin book, about 120 odd pages. Came out in 1978, so obviously a very subjective list. Even then it was probably subjective. People would have said, where's Al Williamson? So he's not in it. If you really love Al Williamson's art, I'm certain you think that he should be, or Frank Frazetta. But of course it's got a number of artists, and you have to be fairly subjective if you're going to go for Masters of Comic Book Art. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 in total. Of course, you've got famous Wollywood, Barry Windsor Smith. Now, obviously, some people might turn around and say, well, those artists now have sort of faded to a degree. That's terrible to say. I think Wollywood's one of the greatest artists ever. But of course, there's lots of people who would look at his work and say, well, is he better than? And that's always the trouble. It's always subjective. There's a good essay in this. It's a good Will Eisner. I think Will Eisner is one of the greats. Love his work, Spirit. Some brilliant work there. Harvey Kurtzman. Now, I'm with Harvey Kurtzman. He's okay. I mean, I quite like the Hey look. Obviously his EC Comics, quite amazing. And, of course, a lot of his obviously comedy works, they're Mad, etc. They're not bad, but I'm not a mega fan of Harvey Kurtzman. But again, this book is obviously this person's opinion, who the masters of comic artists are. So you've got Frank Bellamy, of course, brilliant British artist. I've got quite a lot of examples of his work, called Dan Dare, etc. You've got Heros, always called Heroes, but Heros, the Spartan. Superb art there. And then you've got, now see, Richard Corbin, another one that I just, never too keen on. It's got that weird 3D art, and I do love 3D work. My 3D work, I don't like that sort of realistic, sort of hyper-realistic. It's not even really sort of plasticky. It just wasn't my. And it's also things like, I don't know, it's obviously this Mutant World, this one, or sort of like a Conan kind of thing. However, Barry Windsor Smith, I do love his work. Certainly his Conan work, brilliant. Of course, he did lots of work afterwards as well, and that was still amazing as well. Superb artist. Anyway, got that article, and then you go and do Gerard. Now, he's amazing. Love his artwork. Love lots of French artists, and I think he's superb. Some beautiful double-page spreads. Just, obviously, lots of these weird ones where there's no word balloon. So you've got sort of, you could add any interpretation to a lot of these things. Could be anything. I have no idea sometimes about what the story's about. Looking at it, but you just have to admire the artwork. Then you've got P Lovecraft, this one, of course, it goes into Droulet. And now his work is the weirdest. I've got a couple of volumes. I've got the Lone Sloan. No idea. I don't assume that means something in French, maybe. Lone Ranger. No idea. But whatever it is, the artwork is just plain weird. I just love his style. Just amazingly massive cities of sort of just perspective is just awesome. He's got these sort of, I don't know, statues that you think on alien worlds. You could well imagine, I guess. I mean, this one, a bridge that's just across just absolute starships or whatever, just looking like a horse. I mean, what alien civilization? It's possible, I guess. But it's beautiful artwork. Then he goes into Wollywood. Now, I love Wollywood. It's sometimes not all of his work, but certainly I love his Tower stuff. I love his Tower and, of course, his EC work. Always amazing. I also love his Daredevil. Daredevil work was brilliant. And also Pipsqueak Papers. Remember that? That's just lovely as well. Just beautiful. Robert Crumb. I must admit, I do like a lot of his work, but I'm not super fan of that style. It's just me. But it's good. But it's got a good article again about them. So, and you can obviously, it's a great, but if you don't know much about them, it's always great to find out more. And then you got also a bit more, obviously, Zap Comics. I was never a fan of underground comics. Bought a few, But I love the music of sort of psychedelic 60s sort of thing, but the comic books never did much for me. But this is still a really, really nice book. I say it could have been a 300, 400 page book, could have covered a lot more artists. And of course, it's a bit out of date now, since there's been thousands of great artists all the time coming out, and you think, wow, what amazing work. But, and everyone will have their opinions, who should be in this sort of book. Anyway, this is a fine book from 1978, Masters of Comic Book Art.